Insane edible ambulance ride. Yo, what's up? It's someone that's someone, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report is coming from a Colorado native and his girlfriend. When this happened, 2021 New Year's. The drugs used, black pepper and cannabis. For the dose, he notes, unknown, but it was canna butter made from roughly 20 grams of super dry weed. The route of administration, orally. Gender, male and female. Further weight, 130 pounds for the male and 160 pounds for the female. Age, 18 and his girlfriend, 19. Height, 5'9", and his girlfriend, 5'6". For his prior experience, alcohol, Ritalin, and cannabis. For his set, was looking to celebrate New Year's. Also, they basically had no tolerance. And the setting, in their apartment, and eventually the hospital. Alright, so here we have quite the edible experience. A long in-depth one, which I feel like we've been needing. Sometimes edibles can often be wrote off as not that powerful since it's only cannabis. But under the right circumstances and with the right people, it very easily can be. I'm sure you can tell by the title, we'll get a good look at how strong in this report. Which, this isn't the most uncommon thing. There's been tons of cases where people call for medical assistance because they think they're overdosing on weed. And while that can seem hysterical to some, considering the safety profile of cannabis, subjectively, it can seem like a nightmare. But besides that, we'll also get to see the usage of black pepper in this report, which was sought out for as a remedy for their strong high. We'll be getting into black pepper in another video as it can actually be used for this. But this report is pretty classic and I'm sure you'll enjoy this. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. Let me just start off by saying, this experience felt like the ultimate shit ending to 2020. And I encourage anyone who decides to take edibles to be cautious by knowing the exact dose of your edibles. To fully explain and understand why this trip was so bad, I have to start at the beginning of 2020. In many ways, 2020 was a rough year for me. A lot of unfortunate things happened to me, which led me to abuse marijuana very heavily. Some of these things included graduating and missing out on my senior track season because of COVID, getting out of a very toxic relationship with a cheating narcissist, and totaling 2 cars. Neither incident was my fault. During this time, I also met my new wonderful girlfriend who comes from a religious family. Fast forward a few months into October, I decided to quit smoking weed cold turkey to be more productive and a better person for my girlfriend. Around this time, I still had a few weed plants that were just starting to grow. I left them at my sister's house because my girlfriend and I moved into an apartment together about 5 hours away from my hometown. This is important for later. It's also important to know that my girlfriend only smoked weed a few times with me before I decided to quit. A few weeks before the end of 2020, my girlfriend and I decided to celebrate by making edibles out of my plants, which were ready to be harvested at my sister's house. This was a problem for us because we now live 5 hours away and we're just starting out at our new apartment, so we couldn't make it down right away to harvest them. I asked my sister to harvest the plants, but she understandably didn't, and just let the plants dry out instead for about 3 weeks until we were able to get them. By the time I got the bud, it was very dry, but nothing seemed to be wrong with it. I just assumed it's lost the majority of its potency. The reason I include this is because I believe it could have been a possible factor in why our experience was so strange and miserable. The night before New Year's 2021, I decided to test the bud, just in case, and smoked about 1 gram. It didn't seem very strong, but it still had some effects. The night of New Year's comes, and I had about 1 ounce of very dry bud, 0 tolerance, brownie mix, and my girlfriend. I have virtually no experience cooking anything except for what you can stick in the microwave. My girlfriend, on the other hand, is a wonderful cook and baker. We looked up online how to make canna butter / edibles, and we did just that. We used a whole ounce of bud to make the canna butter, and it smelled and looked very, and I mean very potent, surprisingly. We mixed all of it with the brownie mix, and a few hours later, we had a pan full of edibles. We cut the brownies up into small squares of about 1 by 1 inch, and we were very eager to get baked. The time comes around 10 p.m. when we decided to take the edibles. I ate about 4 squares of brownies, and my girlfriend, wanting to test the limits, took 7. I warned her against this, but assumed she would be fine. The brownies tasted almost like eating straight canna butter. I really didn't like the taste because it was strong. Fast forward to around 15 minutes, and I could already feel them kicking in, which in hindsight was a bad sign. I remember telling my girlfriend, "Oh shit, these are going to be really strong." Besides that, we just lay down on our white fluffy rug in our living room with the TV on. We were just talking about unimportant things and how excited we were to get baked as fuck. Around 30 minutes in, I tried showing my girlfriend a video that always makes her laugh whenever we had gotten high together. She started laughing hysterically just by the thought of the video and really didn't want me to show her because she was laughing so hard it hurt her stomach. This is where things started to take a turn for the worst. After her laughing fit and me trying to convince her I wasn't going to show her the video, we both realized we were intensely high. The high wasn't normal either. It felt like what I can best describe as that ride at a roller coaster park where it slowly brings you out 200 feet off the ground and then drops you really fast. It was so powerful and overwhelming. We both felt insanely nauseated, so I did my best to convince my girlfriend that we would be okay and it would be over soon. I desperately tried to get her to relax by reminding her it's impossible to overdose on marijuana. It didn't feel like a paranoid high. It felt more like the worst food poisoning I've ever had. We both had to manually breathe, and it hurt to move. My girlfriend's stomach started to hurt really bad, and I tried to convince her to lie down and sleep it off. She really wanted to sit up because it made her feel better. She started to scream that her stomach and full body hurt very bad, and I tried to convince her to quiet down. Both our bodies felt super tingly with a strong wave of vibration. I went to go get her water, and I barely made it to the refrigerator 5 feet away. I got her the water and lay next to her. I looked at the white Christmas lights that we have strung up around our apartment, and they were very bright and felt ominous. About what I can only guess to be around an hour and 30 minutes in, I remember that peppercorns can help reduce the effects of a high. Luckily I was able to find them right away in our kitchen cabinet. I immediately grinded them up and had my girlfriend sniff them. I did too, but it only felt like a slight temporary relief. My girlfriend then loudly said that they smelled like God. We later determined she said this because it smelled like frankincense, which is an oil given to Jesus in a Bible story. My girlfriend kept saying that it smelled like God, and the only thing I could do is nod. Then she said, "My dad is here," in a very emotional way. Her dad sadly passed away from cancer in 2015. She told me she thought she was going to die and that God was going to take her away. I told her she wasn't going to die, and this is where things got trippy. We were both in immense pain from the intensity of the high, and my girlfriend said it might help her if I laid on top of her. So I did. When I did that, I hallucinated for about 1 second that she was the devil. She flashed red with horns for a split second. This freaked me out a little, so I jumped off of her. I have never in my life had a hallucination on weed until that point. It turned into a nightmare trip very quickly because she made me pray with her and she started crying. I felt so fucking horrible because it was mostly my idea to take the edibles. I really didn't want to pray anymore after about 2 minutes of it because I knew everything was bad and I wanted to try to calm her down. She really got mad at me for trying to stop her. My vision was moving around in like 10 frames per second. At this point, we both felt like we had to throw up. I made it to the bathroom about 15 feet away and tried to make myself throw up, but couldn't. She told me she wanted an ambulance, which I was hesitant about getting because I knew we wouldn't die or anything like that. I was then absolutely convinced to call the ambulance when she projectile vomited all over our carpet. This did make her feel better, but I was already so freaked out that I called it for her. I care about her safety so much, which just made me feel like even more shit. When on the phone with the ambulance, I remember telling the lady our address, but I didn't want to say anything more. She asked me, "Do you need the police or medical?" I said, "Please send the ambulance." The lady tried to ask me what my name was, but I didn't want to tell her because I knew the call would be recorded. She kept asking me what we took, but I wouldn't tell her, which in hindsight I should have. I then hung up the phone, and I immediately got a call back. Guiltily, I answered the phone, and she told me to make sure the door was unlocked, so I did. Then, what had to have been 10 minutes later, she said, "Go open the door." I said, "It's open." It took me about 2 minutes to realize that she was talking about the door just down the stairs to our apartment building. Our apartment complex is locked from the outside, and you need a little key fob to get in. As soon as I realized this, I hustled down the stairs as fast as I could, dropped my phone, and opened the door. I sat on the stairs, and my heart rate felt super high. About 5 ambulance guys stood around me and asked what I was on. I said, "Just weed." They kept asking me what I was on, and I was telling them I only do weed. I also said ego death, because that's what I knew to compare it to. They were very professional, and at this point, I felt like I was in a movie. They definitely thought I was on more than just weed, but I kept insisting that was all. They all seemed super funny to me, like they were comedians. I kept saying, "You guys are good at your job." For some reason, they thought it was just me calling for the ambulance, probably because I neglected to mention much in the phone call. Then I asked, "Is my girlfriend okay?" And then they realized I wasn't alone and rushed up to my apartment to get her. I remember hearing her laugh at the medical staff putting her on a stretcher. Apparently they had to help her get her pants on and get her shoes. My girlfriend puked again at the top of the stairs while being carried down on the stretcher. Then they had me walk by her out and into the ambulance. Mind you, I had no shirt or shoes on, so I walked barefoot through the snow to the ambulance. My feet froze like a bitch. I sat down on the side of the ambulance while my girlfriend was right next to me on the stretcher. They gave me a vomit bag and hooked us both up to the heart rate machines. The guy in the back of the ambulance introduced himself as Alex, and that made me sad because my friend Alex was killed in 2020. He was in a motorcycle crash. I kept saying, "My friend Alex was a good guy." It felt like forever before we started to move, but eventually we did. My girlfriend and I started to get super romantic. She smiled at me and said she loved me. I kept talking about how hot she was and everything. My heart rate was spiking, and Alex kept telling me I needed to calm down. I heard him say it was like 165 over 125, and it sure felt like it. He put something in both our mouths for nausea, and I said, "There goes $5,000. Then he put something else in my mouth, and I said, "That's going to cost another $5,000. I told my girlfriend that I thought I was going to die, and I was supposed to. I did my best not to vomit or pass out, because I subconsciously knew falling asleep is bad. To me, the whole ambulance ride felt like a romantic comedy movie. It took everything I had to stay awake and to try and calm my heart rate down. Finally, we made it to the hospital, and they put my girlfriend and I in separate rooms. Some nurse came in and stuck an IV in my arm really hard, and it hurt pretty bad. It actually left a scar on me for a few weeks. From this point on, all I remember is passing out, slightly waking up, and I can hear the nurses talking, but they were saying the same things. I kept waking up for a minute, and it felt like everything kept repeating, and the nurses were saying the same things. I felt like I was in a loop until I finally woke up to go to the bathroom. I was so dazed, all I can remember is just walking and a nurse pointing to the bathroom. Then, a day later I woke up, and I walked over to find my girlfriend. I did. She was okay and on the phone with her mom. The hospital kicked us out what I think was later that day. My girlfriend somehow managed to get an Uber. We were in no mental state to leave. I barely remembered the Uber ride, except for the Uber driver telling us about how his wife died a few months back. When we made it to the apartment, my girlfriend and I passed out and woke up 2 days later. It was so crazy. I haven't smoked weed since this happened, but I do not believe in God. I wasn't really religious before this at all, but now I feel like God exists. Spiritually, I am doing much better, and soon I'm going to go seek therapy. I feel good now that I have been sober, but sadly, I had another friend pass away recently. My girlfriend and I are super close, and we now laugh about what happened. This was the first time I really thought about what happened, and I had my girlfriend help me remember. In a way, I'm glad it happened, because it was like a wake-up call. In conclusion, I think what made it such a bad experience was we must have taken the equivalent of at least a few 100 milligrams. I will probably smoke a little bit of weed in the future, but I will never abuse or do edibles again. All that came back as positive in my drug test was just marijuana. To anyone that wants to try edibles, get them from a trusted source, and remember, they're no joke. Also, as soon as you say, "These edibles aren't working," that's when they'll blast you to space. Thanks for listening, everyone, and stay safe. 1 year later update. I will also add that my girlfriend and I are still together, and we laugh about this experience. It was really immature in a lot of ways, but also a good lesson. My girlfriend got a bill from the hospital for around $2,000, which was paid. I also got a bill for around $1,600, but I never paid it because they didn't spell my name correctly on the bill. So for a 20-minute ambulance ride and a night in the hospital, we were charged $3,000. Even when I was so high to the point where I almost didn't know what was going on, I still knew it was going to cost us. Other than that, we are in a much better place and are doing fine. That night was like a really bad fever dream.